Hey guys, I recently saw Thor, Love and Thunder, and I had a lot of thoughts. So, I'm gonna talk about it. First of all, it's a great movie. It's very, 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 very fun. Taika Waititi does a really good, fun film. Lots of funny stuff in it. It's good. It's all good. I enjoyed it a lot. This film really did a good job of merging three really, separate stories. Two of them from the comics and one of them just completely original. The God Butcher stuff, the Jane as Thor, and the just consequences of what all they'd been doing with Thor in the MCU up until now, really follows on well from Ragnarok in a lot of ways. Also follows on pretty well from Endgame in a lot of ways as well. So I think that there's so much good about this movie. Stuff that I'm less fussed about. I feel like the Guardians were underutilized in this film, but they were plastered all over the marketing. Because, of course they were. They are popular and, just kind of adding to Chris Pratt being overused in a way that just is making him great on certainly me, and probably a lot of other folk as well. So, I really, really liked a lot of the stuff in this film, doing a lot more with LGBT stuff in there. I particularly enjoyed the fact that Taika was unable to put any LGBTQ+ stuff in Ragnarok, so he put it all in here. There's so much. Korg has dads, and then Korg meets another Cronin, and that happens, and Valkyrie gets confirmation on being bi, gay. I'm not 100% certain. There's all sorts of stuff that she's into women. That's the main thing, and various other characters that are just like, oh yeah, we're doing this a lot more now, and it's definitely an improvement on the MCU's previous LGBTQ plus representation. It's been pretty bad up until now, so this is a definite plus point on that front. Did I think that they were going to kill off Jane in this film? Did not expect it. Do I think that they might bring her back anyway? I think it's quite possible, being as they could very easily play around with Valkyrie and her, fact that she's a chooser of the dead and bridge between Valhalla and that. They've not touched on that in the slightest in the MCU so far. I'm interested to see them actually put it in there. I think that they really should, because that's a whole thing that they've not touched on yet. Does the post-credit scene with Heimdall and Jane point towards this being a possibility? I think so. I'm surprised that Idris Elba came back for it after his death in the Infinity War. I'd heard that he was not a fan of doing all of the everything for it, so I'm surprised by him coming back, but I think it was a good way to capstone that. Other post-credit scene, obviously, with Brett Goldstein being introduced as Hercules. I couldn't work out who he was to begin with. Not that I could work out that it was Hercules, obviously. They literally put it in there. But I wasn't sure who the actor was to begin with. He looked familiar. We worked it out after the film. But I think that it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. Are they going to have him being villainous? Are they going to have him being a rival, which is what I would like, because he's been one of Thor's two most persistent rivals, proper rivals, not villains, in the comics for, about coming up on 60 years now. The only other one that's stood the test of time as much as Hercules in terms of Thor rivalry is the Hulk. like, come on. I loved some of the creative uses of powers that they put on in this film, like, you know, having the weapons scene, the giving everyone the powers of Thor for a limited time only, and doing all sorts of fun bits and bobs with that, having Mjolnir being able to sort of shatter in the way that it did, to be able to, in Jane's hand, and do that, and that was cool. That was a cool thing to do. Having the reason why Mjolnir was repaired being like that was that was real cool. I liked that a lot. It was a real cool way of doing that, but also really irreverent, which is what Taika's style is. It's incredibly irreverent, and you know what? It fits and it works, and there's so much good in it. I did think that Gore was in some ways underutilized, but he was pretty damn good in a lot of other ways. Christian Bale did a really good job of playing Gore, but I still think that there were some areas where the character was underutilized, just the way it goes. But Gore's only been around for like 8 years as a character, and in his first storyline, he does die, but then he's been pretty confined to the Jason Aaron run, so it all kind of works out in some way, shape or form. It'll be interesting to see if they ever bring him back, or in any way, shape or form, in comic or in film, to be honest. There's all sorts they can do. Now, Eternity. Eternity is a wishing well? That kind of rubs me up the wrong way, being as Eternity is incredibly powerful, and an actual, you know, fit person, entity. Like, how do they justify that very much? It's weird. I'm not sure what to make of that decision, but it's a good film still. The using an Eternity like that was questionable in my mind, but it'll be interesting to see where they go with the kid as they go on. It'll be interesting to see where they go next. I'm wondering if that is going to be effectively the version of Thor Girl that they have for the MCU. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Thor Girl, she is an alien an alien with powers that are gonna like fix the universe. She was called the Designate or something. But what happened was that she just became a massive fan of Thor, and so when she came to Earth and sort of was like wanting to hang out with him, she basically just turned herself into a female duplicate of Thor, complete with hammer, and sort of was like, yeah, I'm Thor Girl. That was a thing that happened in I think it was the late 90s, early 2000s. She's a cool character, I like her a lot, but also, like, I wonder if that's where they're going with that character. I'm wondering if that's who that character is in the end, because there's lots that they can do with that. Axel, Heimdall's son, formerly Astrid, was a really fun character. I quite liked him. I felt that they did him some good justice in there. And there's all sorts of other little bits and bobs that I just really liked some of the stuff in there. It's interesting to me about the goats. They felt a bit underutilized as well, in the same way as the Guardians did. I wonder if in Taika's, like, there's probably a director's cut somewhere. I wonder if in a director's cut they are somewhat more used, but we shall see. Like, I love them. They were brilliant, but yeah, they kind of felt a bit underutilized in some ways. Thor's arc in this film was an interesting one, giving him his whole thing in the previous Thor films well, specifically Ragnarok and then moving into Infinity War and Endgame, had been sort of deciding he wanted to do something else other than leadership, being the ruler of Asgard. And then he basically steps straight back into being the ruler of Asgard in this one, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it was interesting to me that they just did that. Also, I love that they used Sif in this film. We got one of the originals. The films have never been good at using Thor's supporting cast. The films have never been good at it. Like, the Warriors 3, it's literally a joke in this film. They make a joke, oh, and that guy, and that guy, and that guy, all died. And it's like, oh, really? That's the joke that you're making? But also, the films have never had any interest in using those characters anyway, certainly not to the best of their actual abilities. So we, had like cracking actors who were just not used, and the characters have basically been not used. Maybe they'll bring them back at some point and actually do something halfway decent with them, but the fact that we got Sif back in here, it worked so much. I just like that we got one of Thor's supporting cast actually getting to be relevant again from the first couple of films. Unfortunately, she's not very relevant, but she is relevant. They also took her arm in a move that is in the comics at least twice, I think. I certainly remember her losing an arm at one point in a previous Ragnarok storyline that they did, and she fought with Valkyrie's sword because Valkyrie had been killed at that point, and so Sif took up her sword, one-armed, and was fighting and doing stuff in this whole thing, and she did a really good job at it. And it was really interesting to see that they chose to do that one. We'll see what goes on in the future with that. The gods themselves are being used in interesting ways. Omnipotent City was not what I expected that to be when I first saw the trailers and everything. I thought that we were going to Olympus. We're actually gone to Omnipotent City, which, it's a cool place. I like Omnipotent City in the comics. Do I think that this was the best way to introduce it? No, I don't. I think that there's better ways they could have done this. I think we should have just gone to Olympus and just dealt with the Olympian gods, but I think that they're saving that for Hercules or whatever we're getting involving that next time. We will see. Zeus being dead and then not dead is questionable choices, but we will see where it goes with these choices in the MCU in the future. The Bifrost in the axe being the key to eternity. Interesting choice. Very, very interesting choice. Also, I don't feel that they explained the whole problem with Jane using Mjolnir well enough. Basically, at least if it's the same as the comics, which I'm pretty sure it is, she went to the she got the hammer during her chemo, and what happened was that she was using the hammer, and the hammer was being like, but you're sick and you're being attacked by this, so I will stop this from happening, in response to the chemo. So what happened was she was being healthy while she was being Thor, but then her chemo was being deactivated or destroyed or whatever by becoming Thor. So she was then not getting the good use of her chemo. I don't think that came across as well in the movie. Maybe I'm just a stickler, but felt like it could have been stated a bit better. I feel like they should have put in more of Thor's history with the God Butcher from the comics. The God Butcher is meant to be incredibly long-lived. Like, he's meant to have been around for about 1,000 years or so, because he encountered Thor when Thor was the godly equivalent of a teenager, and then went on to encounter Thor in the modern era, and then he carried on encountering Thor way on into the far, far future when everyone else is dead. Literally, in the story arc involving the creation, where the God Butcher Gore was introduced, he literally was so bad and so horrible that he literally created a bomb that would destroy all of the entire universe throughout time, and also he needed to be stopped by 3 different versions of the same Thor. Literally, one using an axe before he was worthy of the hammer, one using the hammer, and another using a hammer, and he was basically Odin. He was the oldest possible god, he was the last god, more or less. And yeah, just the fact that was what had to come together, and in this it was just like, oh, Thor can just beat him with the help of Jane a little bit. He's also meant to have been a more moral, interesting character. Like, he's meant to be more of a moral challenge to Thor, and they kind of took that away in some ways. The whole concept of godliness had not really properly been talked about in the MCU before, and they weren't really going to start now. So I think that I've exhausted all of my thoughts on this film. It's a really good film, but there's definitely some things that, could have been that notch better or so, but a lot of them come from just the franchise problems in the first place. So I really enjoyed this film. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of it. I would love to know, so tell me down there. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you remember to like and share it and subscribe to my channel. Click on the thumbnails over there to see other videos by me, click on the link in the description down below to join my Discord, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!